Hello and welcome to another episode of Defining Your Brand podcast. Today on the podcast, I am talking with James and Elise, who are the founders of Ying 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 clothing. Their brand is kind of a streetwear brand with really bright and bold colors. We talk about everything about their journey and how they got started to where they are now. We also talk about some little insider info on, the deep meaning of their brand and the meaning behind their name, and you'll get to hear all about that in this episode. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode with James and Elise with Ying Ying Ying. Well, I guess to get started, just tell, I know who you guys are, but a little bit about yourself and your brand and all of that.
Are you going?
So I'm James.
And I'm Elise.
And we own Ying Ying Ying, which is a streetwear fashion company out of St. Louis here. Established around, we really came up with the idea in 2017, but really kind of laid some of the bigger foundations in 2018. So
we've debated which year we were established.
So coming up on about 3 or 4 years.
It's like, do we want to be established longer and seem like we've been sucking for longer? or do we want to be established shorter and seem like we've done so much since we started?
So in a short amount of time.
Which one? I mean, we're talking about 6 months different here. So, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think, part of the conversations that I have on here, it's like everybody who's had a business, they have that kind of there's always a rough start. There's never just you jump right in.
You can't start and it's all any business unless you've bought a pre-existing business that just exists and everyone wants to be a part of it. It takes a long time to build a brand or to build, any kind of business. So
yeah. So I don't even know this about you guys, but where'd you guys come up with the name for the brand?
So when we were, because we knew we wanted to do a clothing brand.
We fight about how we actually think.
We knew we wanted to do a clothing brand for a while before we
actually did it. Yeah.
And in general, my style is more of the deeper meaning, have this brand name that has these 8 layers of existence and all this kind of stuff. And
James is a sculpture major, and they get kudos and points based on overthinking. So he literally overthinks to overthink.
Sometimes it's
so then we had this whole 6-month period where we came up with a bunch of stuff and he had a bunch of deep meaning things.
So anyway, Elise was talking me more into the idea of, hey, it doesn't have to be that deep. It can be just something more without all those heavy meanings.
Ideally, if you create a global brand, everybody can find a reason to resonate with it. Sure. So I was if we're making this too detailed, we're gonna we're cutting our niche very quickly, you know? So I was so we were sitting in a bar in California about to visit his family, and we had been listening. He likes The Game. It's a rapper dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's this song called Bigger Than Me, and there is a chainsaw sound. It says Ying 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 in it,
like a 2-stroke motor sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we the song itself is that no one's bigger than me, so nobody can, nobody's better than me. I can do anything anyone else can do type of vibe except rap.
Right.
And so he was like, "What about Ying Ying Ying?" And I was like, that's kind of dope.
The sandwich is really catchy. It was just more the noise and just it meant, it could mean absolutely nothing, but it just had a
cool sound.
And
then I was instantly Googling, I'm hope this doesn't mean something in some other language that is something terrible. Yeah. So I think it's a name in a couple of the Asian languages. And then I think it's actually needs some positive affirmation words in a couple other languages. So I was okay, we're okay.
As long as it's not offensive.
It was please don't mean devil or something terrible. I don't know. Yeah. So that was it.
Yeah, really two-stroke engine sound.
Yeah.
So what's your deeper meaning then, if you were to have one?
We like to say we are streetwear for the persevering. So just people who, no matter what your path looks like, easy, hard, short, long, whatever, people who continue in spite of adversity.
Yeah.
Truly. So, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how did you get started? Like I guess first of all, like what made you decide you wanted to do this?
Yeah, I've liked fashion and art my whole life, but I kind of spent a long time trying to do other things. I was a teacher and was a pre-med major. I did a lot of like sciencey things because both my mom and grandma were artists. And I kind of had this newfound love for art and fashion. He went to Australia for
about a year and a half.
A year and a half.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He came back, and that's when we actually started having these conversations about like, a clothing brand and what it would mean, what it would look like. And
because I had an idea that I was actually, my visa had ran up and I had to come back from Australia. And my idea was going to go back to apply to a couple of fashion schools and got into a few.
The only way he could get back to party was to have a school.
Yeah, right. Visa ran up, so I had to figure out a legitimate reason. So
he was like, I'm going to go back to fashion school. Like, I'm so into fashion now, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why don't we just start a fashion brand? Like, I know that is not a small task to do, but at the same time, we're both very passionate about it. And if anybody can do it, you and I can do it. And rather than go spend $100,000 on a school so you can party, we could just do it and start doing it. And he was like, okay.
So
you're the logic behind this.
Yeah, right. You're noticing a trend here.
We all need a little balance, and our especially relationships in general, but especially business. Something to.
While I'm sure I don't come off a little overbearing or anything. I do need that though, because sometimes I'm just like quick and I'll be like, we got to do it this way, we got to do this way. And he's like, whoa, let's like think about it, Yeah. So I actually do need that. It's good. Like it's a good balance for sure.
It works out.
Yeah.
How long have you guys known each other?
We've known each other since 2015.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right before he left for Australia.
Yep.
Okay, so we basically did, like we met, we like through some friends and we like hung out a few times, but he came back in early 2017.
Yep, moved back to.
Yeah, and that was kind of when the brand really kind of started to become a thought.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like November of 2017 when we like made our first few pieces. So
right.
Yeah.
So did you guys talk like while you were gone?
Not really.
So you just jumped right in.
A lot of conversations before.
Yeah.
And I think we were both in weird places in our life personally. And so I think we were both just kind of like, this needs to be what it is right now. And if it circles back around and we end up back somewhere where this kind of can be more than what it is, then we'll address it then. And then it happened. So yeah.
And you don't have to, can you talk about any of those like weird things you were going through beforehand?
Yeah, sure. I was married still. He was literally divorced a month before I met him.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was married sort of in like a weird separated state. And he was like, he's like, I'm going to party my off.
Yeah. Well, so I got divorced and I was never from St. Louis. It was more or less a transplant here. So very rarely I feel like you're in an adult part of your life where you can do anything.
Right.
Anyway. So I was like, and I wanted to leave St. Louis. I figured my time here was done. So I said, what, if I'm going to leave St. Louis, then I have to go
far.
I have to go somewhere. Like I can't get back to California where I'm from. So I was like, I'm going to go to Australia. So,
well, and you kind of had so he's been a cyclist forever, and you knew some cyclists there, and he was like, he kind of had a job-ish if he went there. So I feel like it was a good like getaway spot. Yeah. So then anyway, he came back. So he was only coming back for 2 weeks in January or February of 2017. And he had texted me and I was still trying to like, figure out my life. And he was like, do you want to like grab a drink? And I was like, no, no, this is not a good time. I'm still trying to figure like my life out. And he was like, okay, like it was just kind of funny. And then like, I feel like another week later, he was like, but really, like, do you want to grab a drink? And I was like, okay. And it was just funny because he was like, I'm leaving in like 14 or 20 days or something. Like he was only going to be here for a short period of time. Yeah. And it was in that very first date, I think, that we were like, well, this is going to go differently than we'd planned.
Yeah. So you made the decision to stay then?
Well, so
2 weeks? Or did you go back?
No, he didn't.
I didn't go back. There was a lot of things happening. I was at the same time getting offered a really great position at my day job. And then I think her getting in my head also about, because we were talking about clothing brand and all of that, like the ability to do it
without going to school.
And
going into more debt. Yeah.
Also, I think I was growing up to a certain extent, or I had it in the back of my mind that
maybe going back to
wasn't maybe the best career choice, but
yeah.
So
how old are you? I mean, if you don't mind me asking.
I just turned 35.
Yep.
And he's 34.
34.
Oh, okay. You're still young.
100%.
Yeah. 35 feels like a little bit getting up there though.
Like you should start making some real decisions at that point.
Like we should maybe I don't know, have a 401k.
Yeah, that's a thing people talk about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the buzzword.
Right.
Yeah, like we should maybe, think about our future.
Right. So in 2 weeks, you decided basically your life was changing completely. It seems like.
Yeah. I was only supposed to be back for 2 weeks. My owner was like, you know what?
By my owner, he means the owner of Swim Bike Run, which is our day job, where he was doing a
consultation job that was only supposed to be 2 weeks, but he wanted me. He said, "Hey, these last 2 weeks have been really, really good. Why don't you stay for 4 months?" Because the school wasn't going to start till the fall, right? So I had a chunk of time. I needed money either way. I needed money to be able to travel anyway.
Yeah, so then I feel like we obviously hung out a few more times over that next month. And then I think that's when he was really like, I'm probably staying here.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't in those exact
weeks, it wasn't.
But it kind of, in retrospect, it feels that way a little bit.
Yeah.
That's still like a quick time to make that big of a decision.
Yeah. I mean, James isn't exactly someone, it's as much as he overthinks design and art, he literally has packed his life up and lost all current possessions 3 times in his life. So I feel like he doesn't, when it comes to those types of things, you're not very attached to places or people, or you hadn't been up to this point.
Yeah.
You can make a big change if you need to.
Very easily, yes. Which is why when I met him in 2015, he's like, yeah, I'm moving to Australia. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And he had no things. He had an air mattress at the time.
I didn't have a place that I was going to live there.
Yeah.
I didn't have a set job.
He was just going. He's just going.
I had a place that I knew I could crash, but
he knew there was a bed he could sleep on.
Right.
The rest we could just figure out.
Yeah. And then when he came back, he had a few possessions he was bringing with him, which he left in the taxi on the way to the airport to come back home, and they are now gone.
Yeah.
So you literally had nothing.
Used that twice, right? Yeah. I mean, everything. I had the clothes that I had and a crossbody bag. That's all I came back with after my luggage got stolen.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Very different. I couldn't do that.
Are you more of a planner, would you say?
Yeah, especially with stuff like that. Yeah. I think I'm less of a planner in some ways. That's what's so weird. When it comes to making decisions for freebieing or being quick about a financial decision or design decision, I feel like I do them much quicker than you. But when it's I'm going to, for instance, I have $47 in my bank account. Should I buy the $46 pair of shoes? I wouldn't do that. James would 100% be like, cha-ching, woo!
I got enough to cover.
I'll make it till the next, which is kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But also something I would never do.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So yes, in some ways I'm more thought-provoking.
You think things through a little bit more. So when you decided to jump into this brand, what did that look like? I mean, how that seems I know people, and I guess I've dabbled in that a little bit, enough to know that that's not an easy task to kind of take on. So what made you just jump into doing that?
I mean, I think it just started with, I think that Elise and I are both streetwear, and I think why we've adapted to streetwear and been passionate about it so much is that it really aligned itself with those kinds of things. And, we were talking about a design because we already come up with the name. We probably still have it. I had a big Sharpie napkin that I had roughed out this Ying 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 thing on it.
Yeah.
Elise has a lot of background in graphics, and she does all of our graphics for all the clothes. So I remember working through her putting that, Sharpied logo into a real format. And, we kind of had an idea of where we wanted to start with, more oversized, tall tee, more bold graphic stuff. And it's like, all right, well, let's focus on just that key core thing. And then
we did a lot of stupid things, like with our first t-shirt, we decided that 150 was a thoughtful number to go for.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you, we did not sell 150. Not even close.
150 shirts.
Yeah. Like we thought that was like a good number, but it's so funny. Like you just learn so many things. So we had a few of those like very first shirts we did. We may still have a couple left.
I'm sure we do. Yeah.
So it was just so many. Now we just all do very small runs of everything. We'll do a maximum of 20 usually of anything that we make. But that first time, I just will never forget him being like, Kevin, we need 100. And I'm like, okay.
Well, because I think for me too, it's like the things that I really like working with on our sides is the kind of the logistics and pricing and stuff like that. So I think anybody who jumps into small business right away, I think you can get enamored by the like quantity and price bakes and stuff like that.
James is like, well, it's $2 if we get 100. And I'm like, okay, well, 100 is a lot. It's also only 20 if we get 5. Yeah. So
I think we really quickly,
it was just funny. Yeah.
Learned about sustainability with small business and brands like that too.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was a really small start. I mean, it was just, we had a few shirt pieces, styles.
Yeah.
Very logo focused.
Yeah.
And
we were literally like, all we have to do for the first 2 years is build brand recognition. Like whatever that looks like, we were like, we just need people to exist that like us or like our brands. I think I joke that my tombstone will say, you can make the dopest shit in the world, but if nobody knows it exists, it doesn't matter, So like we needed to build a platform where at least somebody knew what we were doing and thought it was cool. And that's honestly, I think that is the hardest part about building a brand is building an audience, So
how'd you do that?
A lot of Instagram, so when I quit teaching in 2015, same year we met, I had 200 followers on Instagram and I was like, well, if I want to make art or do artsy things, at that time I didn't know it would be a clothing brand, but I knew I wanted to do something in that field.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to build an audience. So I just started, I think I did 200 for free, almost all of them for free. I think I got paid for like 5 of them, photo shoots in 2016, 17. And I was like, just me taking pictures with these people, they're posting them. I'm at least going to start gaining an audience. And it did. Slowly, I started to gain an audience. And I was like, at that time, I'm like, whatever I end up doing, hopefully this will help that. And that was definitely the case. And then we've both gotten really good at Instagram, just, finding your demographic, following people, And
I think, her working with all the photographers in that period, a lot of those photographers that she met in that period are still some of our friends and in our tight circle when it comes to artists in St. Louis. I mean, we just did a photo shoot, and I would say 80% of those people that came that modeled for us or that came there were people that you met during that time. And
so it was just it was just a year of building. I was a high school teacher where social media is frowned upon, and I have 200 followers, so I need to build a platform of people. And I just thought the more people I met and the more Instagram followers I could get and the more, in networking that I did, the more I would build that. So, yeah.
We were lucky to be able to build and jump into the art community in St. Louis before COVID too. I can't imagine somebody it would have been a very hard thing, and was actually, it's something that we really missed over this last year, is not having that events and community and networking abilities to do with other artists.
Our friend, a photographer, Craig, I don't know if you know Craig. I think his handle is
Faded Visuals.
Yeah, he started Creative St. Louis.
Creative St. Louis.
Creative St. Louis. Yeah, which is a cool networking thing. And he'd only done a few events when COVID started. But just stuff like that was so cool. And it was good for, getting your name out there and
for sure
meeting people and that kind of thing. So
today's episode is brought to you by the very people that you're actually listening to right now. James and Elise with Ying 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 have decided to give you a promo code when you purchase something from their store. So they have custom pins and patches that they've collected over the years. And normally they would charge for those, but when you purchase something from their website, you can enter the code YYYFORYOU and you will get a free pin and patch with your purchase. So again, this episode is brought to you by Ying Ying Ying, and they're giving you a free pin and patch with purchase. So make sure you head over to the shop. I'm going to link the website in the bio and get yours today. What do you think it's going to look like going forward? Because I feel like we're all things are loosening up and things are kind of, I don't want to say normal, but things are kind of having a sense of people are loosening up a little bit. Do you feel like that'll affect, I guess the first question is, did you see it affect your business last year? And do you think things are going to change going forward as things kind of regulate?
It was actually our best year ever.
Really?
Yeah. So
we've been at the beginning of the growth pattern too. So I think that we're in a good place now, whereas the fashion industry as a whole took a huge hit.
Absolutely. The irony for us is, we've been building, and I feel like we're finally, last 2 years has been us getting to a place where we are starting to have an audience of people who like what we're doing. And
we're finding our own.
When we've only, as far as sales, we've only ever been online. So we don't have a brick and mortar. I mean, we have now our showroom in our house, but I feel like all of the shop local, support local designers, and that type of energy during COVID actually really helped. And so during COVID, I think for the first time we've done a lot of sales at pop-ups, and we've done sales at events or, different things, but our online sales have always just kind of been, a little bit here and there, it'll trickle in, trickle out, whatever. But during COVID, I feel like it was bigger than ever. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I think that focus, especially in a lot of cities, but especially in St. Louis, I think as things start to open up more, I think there's going to be a newfound energy to events and supporting
100%.
Small businesses in the city, and I think it's going to be. We
are excited. When and if we get to do a fashion show again.
Yeah, I think that's what we're waiting for. Is when are things okay enough that a fashion show will actually exist, and
maybe it's different, and that's fine. But the energy that comes from a fashion show is so awesome. So
you guys have done a show before?
We've only done one.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, the energy.
It was really awesome. Good. It was also the first time we put an entire collection really together. So we'd done a few little collections before that, but it was the first time we really put everything we had done up to that point and styled it and put it all together in one place. And so that feels really cool, I think, as a designer.
Totally. It was a big stepping stone for us too, because it forced us to it was our first step into what we now do as collections, right? Because you're saying, okay, someone's going to watch 14 of our looks. So there has to be something that pulls it all together, or it can't just be a bunch of random stuff that we throw on somebody. There has to be meaning or, cohesiveness.
A lot of meaning. And you asked also what is it going to change going forward? I will say one thing. My parents owned 3 boutiques growing up. So they had only brick and mortar, and they didn't have a brand. They just carried other people's brands.
Yeah.
And honestly, the overhead in a boutique to me is very stressful. So from day one, I have been very overhead low. I don't want a brick and mortar until, honestly, we've kind of joked that we'll get a brick and mortar once we've made it, because it'll be almost like a cool little flagship place to have or something. But I never wanted that to be our bread and butter. I wanted it to be direct to consumer as much as possible, because it was just a business model I felt more comfortable with.
Totally.
So that being said, I think we are lucky in that way where we've only ever relied on online sales. So I think the beauty of the world we're in, COVID or not, online sales haven't seemed to be super affected by that, so I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting too that you said the thing about the fashion show, because I felt like I was getting ready to step into that world, because it's not one that I historically have been a part of. And right as I was kind of making those relationships, everything shut down. So I think it would be cool to see that kind of come back together again, and kind of, whatever that's going to look like. And it may be, I mean, I've even seen events go, virtual, but it feels different, than the live stuff, but I hope that can happen again.
It's hard for us virtual because we've considered on many occasions doing even just like a little show in our house or a little show, at a place with just a few people where it's broadcasted. I don't know if we have a big enough platform that people would log on yet, and that's what's so hard. You are so subject to people getting online and sure, I guess if you did it on YouTube, it's just such a different thing. And like when you go to a fashion show, you instantly have 150 people you've never met before that have probably never seen your brand before. And if we were to go live on Ying 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 and do a fashion show, like sure, maybe 100 people would get on and see, or even 2, but it's like, it's that same people we already know we exist. We're not getting to show our clothes to a new audience. So
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a tricky, we've almost done it so many times.
The reason that fashion shows exist is because it's a format that's been developed in real life situations, right? So not everything that exists in real life can you then transfer into a digital format and it works out. And I think for us, one of the things that we've talked about this year is, okay, so if we're not going to put our energy into a fashion show, we'll, I think, put energy into doing more individual photo shoots with models and photographers in St. Louis. Because to me, a photo is already a digital format that people use, and it's built out of that. Like to me, I would rather see our energy have a variety of cool artistic photos from a lot of different artists than putting it into all this work into something that isn't built to be watched through a screen.
We were sitting at dinner like a week ago and James was like, I have an idea. And I was like, yeah, what is it? And he's like, how cool would it be if we pick, 10 of our favorite models we've worked with or whatever, and have them pick their favorite photographer. We will pay their photographer, for an hour of their time or whatever, and send the model, 2 or 3 looks and say, you two create something dope and post it. Like our only requirement is that you post it. Like both of you have to post the pictures, know? Right. And I'm like, that is a really cool idea because not only are we don't really know who they're picking or what they're doing. And we're now getting that photographer and that model's audience, which I think can be really big.
Well, I think good for the marketing side, but also we are artists that own and run a fashion company, but we're still artists at the end of the day. And I think that one of the things that drew me to that idea was that I think it's cool to be able to support other artists in St. Louis.
100%.
And
we try to do that.
A cool way to do that through Ying Ying is to pay a photographer to shoot one of our models in our own clothes. Like it's
I mean, maybe not if your hourly rate is $1,500, but assuming it's something manageable.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I'm curious too, like, it sounds like, I think we all do this, especially as artists. We're constantly trying to overcome obstacles and different things that kind of come our way. I'd be interested to hear just like things that, because I feel like for people who maybe have a smaller audience that see people that, especially online appearances, are different than what our experience is. Like if people look at you and think, wow, they're really successful, they have everything. And I'd like to hear, for me, like, I like to hear from people that seem so really successful. Like, what were some of the struggles and things that you had to overcome, or mistakes, or, some of those stories, just because, like, I feel like that makes it feel a little more like, okay, someone else has experienced that too.
I have so many thoughts about that. One is that perception is not reality. Yeah. But I also believe very, very greatly that the perception you create does eventually create that reality. So I think that's very important.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a twofold thing. But at the same time, we both feel very passionately about being completely real, So like, as much as you want to put off that you're doing great and everything's wonderful, we have done a lot of crazy, stupid things.
Yeah. And also, I think that the hard part too is like, what's your definition of success as an artist, right?
Right.
Because that's the big question that distinguishes everything.
100%.
And we talk about this all the time, and I'm sure we will continue, because as you become successful, there's always another goal that you haven't reached yet that
we literally have to like
your success by. So
we shake ourselves sometimes and we're
like,
like,
hey, like
where we are right now is exactly where we were dreaming to be, you know, a year ago.
Right.
And as much as sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, we're not doing it. We're not moving fast enough. We're not getting where we want to go. And we're not, you know, we're not meeting this goal. Or we were literally sitting in the apartment we rented in, I guess, a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And
2 years ago.
We were like, how cool would it be to someday have like a showroom and a storefront? And then we get, you know, and so we were sitting at dinner the other night and we're like, we need to stop. Like, yes, we're always going to push and we're always going to want more, but like, this is exactly what we wanted, you know, a year ago.
Yeah. Being able to just create and be an artist, to me, is almost is the beginning of success in and of itself. I mean, and I think that's for us why this is sustainability was so important, is because sometimes that journey takes a really long time, and you have to be prepared for that. The other thing I think really helped us with success was, and this would have been me holding us back, was
no way. No.
And I'm better on it now, but in the beginning, whenever we started Ying Ying Ying, I was nervous because I wanted it to be a lot all at once, and boom, go.
Yeah, he wanted everything cool we could ever imagine to be right now.
And sometimes what would have happened there is I would have, instead of just making it happen, I would have just taken a bunch of time and maybe never had it just right.
Money.
Whereas I think the best thing that Elise has brought to our kind of thing is, let's just put it out. Well, because you learn about it, you do the next one, and every single time
the beautiful thing about fashion specifically is it moves so fast, almost too fast sometimes. Like you can literally be like, oh, I want to make this, and let's make a like installation for this collection. And I'm like, okay, as much as that sounds like the dopest thing in the world, like I want you to make a chain link fence installation for this collection.
In 6 months,
however,
it doesn't even matter anymore.
Literally, like we need to be thinking about the next collection right now. And here's what we always say this all the time. I'm like, this is maybe, sorry, inappropriate, but we can't blow our load on every collection. We have to literally like scale. And I keep saying, there's always something bigger in the future. And like, we've been asked to, obviously, I'm sure like every brand in the world, but to go to New York Fashion Week a couple times. And I'm like, it has to be the right situation. And when we do a chain link fence, you know, installation or something really huge that goes with the collection, like let's do it then. Or, you know, like let's hold off, because we get to create, right now we're creating a collection twice a year.
Yeah.
So it's like, as much as you want to do all the cool things, we get to do all the cool things. We also need to do all the cool things at the right time, you know? And so that is hard. It's a hard balance of like, and it comes down to money and resources and that type, like say our budget for each collection is, I don't know, I'm just making up a number, $5,000. And I'm like, you know, we could spend 10 easily. Of course we could spend 10 on every collection, but then we don't have money to do the next collection. And it's like, you have to, you know, you have to keep it, you have to pace yourself or else it isn't sustainable. And that has been something so important to us from the beginning. I feel like we didn't talk about any of our failures. So we have had many.
Well, I guess maybe potential failures of getting stuck in wanting to make so much, but then not making anything at all. Right. And I think that would have been a failure. It would have been right. But I think that we've
done a lot of stupid little things, you know, like
buying too much or
too many of one particular SKU, and like then we sit on it for a while, or you know, like I mean, we've done so many I can't even like, but it's all like trying to proportion like what should go into this collection or what shouldn't, and how much energy and time and money goes into this one, and then what are we saving for the next one, and how do we keep moving forward? And fashion's so weird because at the beginning I was like, babe, we don't have to do collections like everybody does them. And I think what actually has turned out to be something we truly love about it is you get to keep creating, you know, and it's such a cool thing that it is something new. And if you're not putting too much, you're not sinking too much into one, you get to just like move on and do something cool, you know, in the future. So that's, it's a hard balance to learn for sure. But
yeah, for sure. And I know that we talked about this when I did a shoot with you guys, but like you talked about people that want to get in this industry and how there's a sense of like, I wish you the best, but And I think
100%.
a lot of us that have been in whatever industry we're in, there's a sense of, like you want the best for someone, but you also know how much work it is on the back end versus someone that's just like jumping in.
At the end of the day, if someone else wants to become a designer and have a brand, it only is helping the ones that already exist, because you're putting energy in the direction of fashion or whatever. But we've had a couple people in our short time be like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm going to start my own. You guys are so inspirational, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a piece of you that's like, okay, good luck, bro. Like this has been 4 years in the making, and we're still just barely, getting somewhere. So.
And the crazy thing is that, and that's across all art forms too. I mean,
any art form.
100%. I mean,
James and I preach all the time. He went to art school. I didn't, but my mom went to art school. My mom was an artist, and art school doesn't teach you how to actually make money in being an artist. They teach you how to be an artist, or how to,
how to be an artist.
Yeah, or perfect your art form or whatever. And you spend a lot of time creating, which is really cool. But I genuinely think the most important part about anyone going into any creative field is learning how to monetize that.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't want to be big, or you don't want to sell out, or you don't want to, you still have to make money, or you're going to have a different job, So if you want your passion to be your job, you need to know how to run a business. And that's definitely something not everybody knows how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's the struggle with a lot of artists, is that that's why they call them starving artists, is that they don't, you don't know, 100%. It's funny. I was thinking about this. It seemed like you guys had a good handle on your style going into it. Yeah. And I think that probably served you well, because I know for me, like, especially with photographers, they just tell you that you need to shoot so much content in order to even figure out what you want to do. And so like, sometimes it can take a long time before you even know your own style. And I'm sure with the same as with design is like, you know,
100%.
You may like flop and fail and make mistakes until you're like, okay, this is kind of my groove. And so even before the business side of it, you're still learning how to become the artist you're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed that in so many ways, because I think that the beauty of when we met, we were both had already done a few things, been in a few places, had a couple of relationships. And I think that helped us. We were like laser focused on what we were going to do. And I think that is huge. Like if you had asked me to start a clothing brand at 21, it absolutely 100% would have failed, because I wouldn't have known what I wanted. We wouldn't have known.
Yeah. Which obviously doesn't point out, I don't think it has anything to do with age specifically, but I think I don't think it was until that time that we could have even have realized and conceptualized away all the other mess and had that focus. I mean, it's 100% one of the toughest parts.
Yeah. And I think where we were when we met was like quintessential perfect timing, because we literally were finally both at a place where that could be something we could unabashedly like dive into, So yeah, that makes an absolutely huge difference. Like, I liked so many things before I was 30. Like, I wanted to be a painter, and I wanted to be a scientist, and I wanted to write 7 books, and I still want to write a book. But it was just like at that perfect point where it was something we both were really passionate about doing, So
I mean, that's a huge part of a brand, right? Is you have that focus or that style and stuff. I mean, I think that it's obviously really good.
Yeah, it was just really good timing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elise, I'm curious, like you mentioned all these different interests that you had, and I can relate to that. Like, how do you find, as someone that is focused on, we'll say focused on one thing, like how do you satisfy all of these other interests that you have while focused on one thing?
That's a hard question. I'm lucky because one of my other passions is graphic design. So I get to do a lot of that on the side. I'd probably do 15 to 20 websites a year. I get to do graphic design for my day job. I get to do a lot of other things. As far as, which was my other big passion when I left teaching, was that I wanted to do graphic design. So that worked out well in my favor. So I do get to kind of do that anyways. And then like writing books is another thing I've always wanted to do. And I've kind of always, more recently, I've just been like, I'm willing to put that on the back burner right now because Ying 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 means so much to us and where we're at. And honestly, a lot of my books, I think, this sounds kind of crazy, I think it requires me to have another few years of wisdom to complete them. Like I have one that's like partially written, but I just can't finish it. And I think that's because I need more life experience to get to where I want on that. And so I feel like it's kind of just, I also am a very firm believer that I don't like everything happens for a reason, but I like that things will happen in time. Like they will happen as they're in the order I think that they're meant to.
Yeah.
Because thus far, things kind of have happened in a really good order. And like, I tend to take things as they come. So I do want to do all of these other things, but I think that they will just naturally happen as we continue with Ying Ying Ying. So yeah, I don't know. And the beauty also is that I already got to work at a pharmacy for 7 years and I had a pre-med degree and then I got to teach anatomy for 7 years and I got to do all of that like non-artsy stuff for a long time. And so now I'm kind of in this artsy world. Yeah.
You used to paint a whole lot.
Used to paint all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did too. Well, you went through a painting phase.
Yeah. I think that's probably actually something that, or I would guess to me, a lot of artists struggle with is when you are artistic, especially growing up, not necessarily having, I don't know, to me, the arts aren't necessarily super focused on in the US. So you're finding all these little ways and things to be creative and do art. So you grow up not having one thing that you're doing. So it's tough to then.
Yeah, it's not like you were specializing in oil paintings at age 8.
Since you were 6 and now
you're
a professional oil painter. Like,
yeah.
So I think it's really tough by the time you get to be in a place where you can start your own brand to shed off maybe some of those extra layers of creativity that you don't have time for. Right. But like you said, I mean, it's an exchange and they got you to where you are and they were an expression.
Yeah, about Ying 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 being a brand is you get to do so many facets of it because it is sure we get to design, we get to like pick the garments, we get to, he'll draw stuff sometimes and then I'll take the drawing and I'll turn it into like a vector.
I think even like, so the season collection that we just debuted or will be debuting here for the spring we were talking about yesterday, a very abstract kind of collection. I think that to me, I see a little bit of Elise's painting backgrounds and the work that she was doing years ago come out in that. So I think kind of the cool thing with Ying 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 is some of those things that were focused on that you were really creative with kind of end up finding their way inside of the brand somewhere.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, as you've built this, what is your feeling of like what a brand is? Like what does it mean to have a brand or create one? Or, what is kind of, to me, it seems like it's something that I'm so involved in, but it still seems like something that feels elusive, this word of brand. Like, what does it mean to you?
World domination.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kidding. I don't. What does it mean?
Oh, it's really tough because like
That's
I even
a very
think
hard
like
question.
To me, brand is recognition, which is somewhat expectation. But also the thing about a brand is there's also an expectation that you're going to break that expectation. Like it's always moving forward, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I feel like it's just a recognizable thing that is progressive and moving forward. And I've always just had this vision of being able to like create things that we think are cool.
Yeah.
And hope that along the way, other people think it's really cool too. And I think I always wanted it to be a brand versus like, I don't know. There's so many other words that people use. They're like, are you a clothing company? Are you a brand? Are you, I've always wanted to be a brand, but I don't know.
It's tough. And I think, I think our definition of that gets clear every year too, in the sense that, I think that in more years, we'll be able to do more and more and more, and that brand will start to evolve and get in larger definition.
Yeah.
I think for us, focusing on those key aspects of fashion that really excite us. So bold, draping, oversized, streetwear style vibes. Like to us, Ying Ying as a brand is sticking to those core things and then finding unique ways to rewrite that. Like, for instance, bold. Bold is a super buzzword, right? So like, how do you write bold outside of the box? Like, how do you reinvent the word bold? I mean, I think that's what we hope to do with the brand, is kind of keep pushing at those things, but still keep pushing the definition still outside the box at the same time.
I just really want, it sounds super cliche, but like, it's cool to potentially leave something really cool behind that maybe will continue when you're not around, and that's, I feel like that's the idea of this brand, is hopefully it will become something that will continue when we aren't here anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's cool. No, I love that. So you just released a line recently, right?
It is, well, we had it live at our pop-ups.
Yeah, we did pop-up series in March.
And we just shot the garments on Friday.
Yeah, to more or less be release them on our website.
So they should go on the website within the next 7 days.
So really, unless you've seen a couple things on social media or at our pop-ups, there's really nothing to show of it yet.
Yeah, so it hasn't officially launched really. The hard part is we've never done it in this order before. So we did the pop-ups first, and then we'll be releasing the collection. But we kind of sold almost everything.
Yeah,
that's funny.
So we had enough pieces to shoot for the website, but we're like, so do we like put all these garments up and some of them have one item left, or like, it's just kind of funny. We have a few that we can like continue to like do a pre-order situation where someone can order and it's going to take a couple extra weeks. But it was just funny. We've never done it in that order before. So it is a little bit backwards, but it was kind of cool though. It was cool to see people getting excited about something that we haven't actually put into the internet world yet. But so it should be in the next like week or so.
Yeah.
I was going to say what's coming up, but it sounds like what just happened is also what's coming up.
Yeah. We have already been talking about our winter fall.
Collection.
We don't know much. Can't say what it's going to be called.
Well, we're not sure yet.
We're not sure. We think it's going to be called Rebirth.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
can I ask what inspired that?
Oh, what did inspire it?
Well, so we normally start with large images or some sort of
or a collection of images or something that like we're both like, that's so cool. Whatever it is. Yeah.
And this one was a Renaissance painting that you'd like look up in a chapel and see at the top, right?
We both like literally for a long time, we have both thought A, with the Renaissance era, B, just like those very old time oil paintings of like human figures and angels and demons and, heroic people with pitchforks and stuff. We always thought that was really cool. Yeah. Both of us, we both think that's dope. Yeah. So we don't know where it's going, but we think that is the inspiration for the next line. We don't have anything
We do
else.
know for sure colors. So we want to do shades of orange, shades of maroon. You're better at explaining the color.
Yeah, it would be more like pops of bright orange with steel grays and burgundy.
Maybe some purple thrown in there.
Yeah, it'll be cool, but we don't know. None of this is solidified. Don't quote us. We could literally take a left turn and be like, Rebirth is getting put on the back burner and it might not happen until next fall. But we think that's where we're going. Yeah.
Subject to change.
Yeah, subject to change. Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Totally.
Well, if people don't know that are listening to this, like where you are, like where can people find you and follow you and everything that's happening?
Everything is either Ying 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 or yingyingying.shop is our website. Yep. I think our handle on Instagram is Ying 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 Shop.
Yeah, at Ying Ying Shop.
We had to switch it to shop at the beginning because you know what? There were no other URLs available. Yeah. So yingyingying.shop it became, and then we just kind of went with it. Yeah. And then that's it. Yeah.
And then we will continue to do pop-ups probably twice a year. So we're looking up to have the ability to do a pop-up just out of our showroom in our home.
Yeah.
So that's in
We're
South City on
thinking
Jefferson.
September, October will be our next one, somewhere in there. So yeah, we're excited.
Well, I'll make sure to put all those links so that people can follow it. But hopefully they can come to the pop-up shop in person, especially. Things will, let up a little bit. But
yes, totally.
Cool.
Yeah, we really appreciate you doing this. We think you're dope.
Yeah.
Well, likewise. I only like having people on that I love what they're doing and what they're about. So for sure wanted to have you on. I think you guys are doing something really cool.
Thank you. We appreciate that.